Mom, when she married my father, wasn't a Baba lover. In fact, my mother and father had been going out together for quite a while, which in those days was rare. And only by chance, overhearing a conversation between a gentleman called Minu Kharas, you probably heard of Minu Kharas, his book just came out, and who was an old Baba lover, and my grandmother, did she realize that my dad was a Baba lover?
Oh.
So she was most upset because in those days Baba's name wasn't well received within the Parsi community. In fact, most of them were anti-Baba in those days. They didn't think much of him.
Excuse me, should we know their name? Your father's name, complete name, and your mother's name?
My father is Adi Dubash and mother Rhoda.
Adi Dubash and Rhoda Dubash.
And my grandmother, this conversation that she overheard was in a hospital in Bombay, as a matter of fact, not in Karachi, in Bombay. And she was waiting for my dad to come. My dad was also in Bombay at the same time. And when she was waiting for him on the second floor. Her room was on the second floor, and she saw Dad coming up the stairs. In those cases, they had those old spiral stairs or open stairs. You could see people all the way down. And as soon as Dad was coming, she kept yelling at him. She said, "Adi, Adi, you never told me you follow MeherBaba. Adi, you never told me you follow MeherBaba." So, and Dad was sort of going like this all the way. Finally, comes up and says, "Adi, you never told me you're a follower of MeherBaba. What's this? Is this true?" So Dad said, "Yes." So he said, "Why didn't you tell me?" So Dad turned around and said, "Well, you never ever asked." So Mom was quite upset, but anyway, she decided that she would marry him. And she decided that she would marry him and turn him away from this fraud, as she called MeherBaba.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's what she decided. She decided to do that. Wow. So the marriage day comes along, and meanwhile, she's been here, now Minu Kharas and my grandmother were constantly used to talk about Baba and Mom's presence, just to open her ears to what Baba was about.
Grandmother means your...
My grandmother is Dad's mother.
Your father's...
We used to call her Nays, but they used to her nickname was Mummy. And she was referred to, even Baba used to call her Mummy.
Aww.
Yeah.
What was her name?
Her name was Nays Dubash.
Names?
Nays. N-A-I-Z-E.
Nays Dubash.
So they would talk in front of every time Mom was there, they would take the opportunity to talk about Baba, and Mom would listen. And she would think that, they're talking, what I'm hearing from them is quite different to what I hear from the other people. The other people say Baba's this and Baba's that, but the things they're saying about Baba, nothing wrong with it. So she was sort of confused, perplexed, whatever. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. And at some point in time, she sat and she threw a challenge to Baba, and she says, "Baba, if you are who they say you are, you will send me your blessings on my wedding day." And Mom says she threw out the challenge, and then she forgot about it completely. So finally the wedding day rolls up. Karachi is like another dry, hot. It was July. Even in the monsoon months, Karachi didn't even get cloud cover. It would still be sunny, and it would be hot. Very little rain, 10 to 11, 12 inches of rain a year, very dry. And Dad says that July 1st was their marriage day. And they had the marriage was arranged in the grounds of the Parsi Institute in Karachi, which is quite a big area of grounds and nice lawn and everything, out in the open, because it's hot day, never rains. Dad says July 1st dawn, just a regular hot sun blasting. But he says as the afternoon came along, it was like somebody was pushing the clouds along, and the clouds were starting to pile up. And before long it got dark and the clouds opened up and it was torrential rain. Not rain, torrential rain. He said, because Karachi is not used to a lot of rain, if they get 2, 3, 4 inches of rain, the water is knee deep. And he said, because the drains get clogged, the drains aren't used to the water
flushed out.
flowing and so he said the water's piled up knee deep. And people were wondering how to get to the wedding, because the wedding invitation was early evening or something like that. In fact, the water was so bad in some places that one of the priests who was supposed to be doing the wedding, he refused to come. He says, how can I walk in this knee-deep water with all, the priest dress in that long satra, some similar to what Baba has, but quite different actually, but a long dress all the way down to the and a jacket on top and stuff like that. He says, how can I come? I can't walk through this knee-deep water. So Dad's brother went in a car. They actually lifted him up and put him in the car, and he came. But because the rain was so heavy and the function was outside, it was completely washed out. And my mom was all upset that the function would now be washed out, there wouldn't be anybody there. So she was all dressed up in her wedding dress, and they had this car all decorated, and they were on their way to the wedding, to the location, the Parsi Institute. And Mom says that in the car with her was her mother, and I think her mother's sister, her aunt. And Mom was weeping, crying. Her sari was all stained with because the decoration on the car with the colored paper, the water was running off it, and it was all a mess. So she was very upset. She was weeping and crying. So her aunt says to her, says, Rhoda, why are you crying? Why are you crying? Rain is meant to be God's blessings. Lots of people think rain is God's blessings. Why are you crying? He's sending His blessings to you. And Mom says it still didn't click with her. So she heard it, and it went in one ear and out the other. But she's forgotten about the challenge. She still forgot about the challenge. And so the wedding takes place. It was a mess, like 10%, 15% of the people turned. They invited 500 guests or something, Mom said. And about 50 people turned up, just close friends and relatives, really close friends and relatives. And it was all washed out, and it was over. And, sorry, let me backtrack a bit. When her aunt said that, Rhoda, why are you crying? This is God's blessings, rain is God's blessing. She said the thought did strike her for a second or two that I did send Baba the challenge, but she said I was so upset that I immediately forgot about it. And then I forgot about it. But it did cross my mind for a second or two. The wedding was over and everything was finished. This challenge, mind you, Mom had thrown silently to Baba. She hadn't told anybody. My dad didn't know about it. I never knew about it as a child, nobody knew about it. Years later, in I can't remember whether it was 1960 or 62 or 63, we were in Guruprasad, and Sarosh Irani, Baba's Sarosh from Ahmednagar, that's Sarosh Irani, his son, also called Merwan, he was marrying, he was getting married, and his bride was a foreign lady from Austria or someplace like that. So when they picked them up at the airport, Sarosh brought them to Guruprasad, to Pune first, to take Baba's darshan, and then move on to Ahmednagar. And they did that, and Baba said, have a good wedding, this, that and the other, and they went off. The wedding was in 3 or 4 days. On the day of the wedding, we were sitting in Guruprasad in front of Baba in the morning, Baba tells Iraj, she says, this was Baba's sign for call. Call Sarosh and ask him how the preparations are going. So Iraj goes into the next room, calls Sarosh. He comes back in a few minutes and Baba says, what happened? So he says, Baba, Sarosh is yelling at the top of his voice. He's saying, tell Baba, what's he doing? He says, Ahmednagar, there are clouds, there are heavy clouds, there's torrential rain. Look, we had everything arranged outside and we now have to move everything inside. It's chaos. Oh, I forgot again one thing. See, when they came to, when Sarosh brought his son and his bride to be his fiancé to Baba for darshan, they asked for Baba's blessings. And Baba said, give her. Then they went. So back to now, Iraj telling Baba, Baba, Sarosh is yelling, what are you doing? Tell Baba what's he doing? The function is ruined, it's raining cats and dogs, it never rains like this in Nagar at this time. This was in May, June. So Baba has a bit of a smile on his face, he didn't say anything. That was it. The next day, Sarosh brings the whole family to Baba for his darshan after the wedding. And they step into Manvi Hall, and Vilu, Sarosh's wife, says, Baba, what did you do yesterday? The whole function was finished. It got, completely upset. All our plans were upset. We had to move everything in from outdoors. The function was a mess. So Baba looks at the boy, Merwan, who'd asked for his blessing and said, he asked for my blessing. Then he turns to Mom who's sitting somewhere in front of him and he says, ask Rhoda what happened when she asked for my blessing. And Mom sitting there, she was absolutely aghast, her mouth was open. And for a few seconds she was actually dumbstruck. Finally Iraj had to say, come on Rhoda. Baba wants you to tell the story, tell the story. So then she narrates the story. She had forgotten and she had never told anybody. Nobody knew. Not Dad, not me. It was just between her and Baba.
Baba said to her when she finished her story,
Oh yes.
and tell them.
And Baba said, after Rhoda finished the story, Baba said, but you forgot one thing. And he said, you forgot to tell them that after giving me the challenge, you completely forgot. He's telling Rhoda that you forgot. And Mom says, that's right, Baba, I did forget. So that was that.
Wow.
And then, of course, now back to the early days again. After Mom and Dad got married, of course, Mom was carrying me, and the doctors at that time had given a prognosis that there's a very good chance that she would not be delivering a live boy.
Oh, Baba, baby.
Yeah. So a live baby, not the windows. So Mom was quite upset about that. And she kept repeating Baba's name, although she wasn't firmly a Baba lover by then. This was 1947, right? She still kept repeating his name. Lots of scares by the doctor telling her that your child, very good chance he won't be born, child won't be born, etc. Eventually, they were wrong because I'm still here. So
Thanks to
I was born, and I guess that reinforced Mom's faith in Baba a little bit more. So I was born. As is normal practice in a Baba family, when a child is born, you send a telegram to Baba saying, Rhoda had baby boy. And Baba sent a reply saying, congratulations or
My blessings.
my blessings. My blessings to Rhoda and her child. Right? I'm glad you mentioned that. No, those were the words. My blessings to Rhoda and her child. And within a couple of days, he sent another telegram saying, Rhoda Adi child to be named Merwan. And it was spelled Merwan, because there's a number of spellings of Merwan, you know. So, and that's how I got my name. I mean, immediately, Dad was very happy with the name. Mom wasn't, because Merwan was an old-fashioned name. Don't forget, Mom still wasn't Lava 100%. So she wasn't too pleased with the name. But she said, at the time I thought it was an old-fashioned name, I didn't like it. But Dad was in 7th heaven, Dad. But then afterwards, of course, years later, after Mom became very close to Baba, she said, now I would never given up that name for anything. But at the time, she was a little diffident about it.
Did you say it's a Merwan, M-E-R-W-A-N spelling?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how the cable had the spelling. Then, I guess the first time I met Baba was when I was around 18 months. It was actually December 31st, 1948. I remember that date because I suppose, I don't know why, but I do.
Well,
I forgot, I didn't know about it till I actually read about it in Lord Mayor. But then after I read it, it stuck. A bunch of us, about, I don't know, 5, 6, 8 people from Karachi had come to Nagar, actually in the trust office. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the darshan we had of Baba was, you know the room where Craig sits?
yes.
Yeah? That room, I'm told, used to be used by Baba as a little meeting room. So he would sit there, and when people would come, they would sit there and he would give darshan over there or talk to them or whatever it was. In that sort of area. As is normal for Baba, when someone new comes to him, the person who brought that individual to Baba is asked to introduce the person to Baba. Minu Kharas was the one who brought our family to Baba. So my parents were there, my grandmother was there, Minu Kharas was there, I think his wife and a couple others. So Baba tells Minu to bring me in. I'm 18 months old, so Minu carries me in. Baba takes me in his lap, plays with me for a good few minutes, he said, and then he put me on the floor. And I scampered away somewhere in the back over there. And then he called Mom and Dad, and they took his darshan and this and that. And I guess by 18 months I was speaking, because when I was at the back of the room, all of a sudden they tell me I said, Baba.
Oh.
So Baba looks up at me and indicates. And he says, out of the many on the waiting list, I have selected him, whatever that means. So that was the first meeting I had with Baba. I think it was only for the day. We were up here for some reason. I don't exactly know what it was, but we were here for the day. We had the darshan and then we left.
That's the room where you now work also.
Yeah, coincidence. Huh?
It was all planned, maybe.
Oh.
That's why he can do his best work.
Ah.
After that, I had a brief darshan of Baba in Karachi actually, because although Baba never actually came to Karachi for a visit, he was in transit. This was in 1952 after his accident in the US. He was going back to Bombay and there was some strike in those days of air personnel. And he had to break his journey in Karachi. He wasn't scheduled to come to Karachi, but he had to break his journey there. And because he was breaking his journey there, he had informed Minu Kharas. And he said, just bring one person with you, not everybody else. So Minu took my dad with him. But we were all ready. We were all ready and prepared. If Baba called, we would go. And sure enough, he called. And we went. So he was at the airport over there. I mean, he was just in waiting. So that was a sort of must have been half a day or perhaps a little longer. So that was the second time I saw my thing. And there are a few others, but I'll jump to.
Excuse me, can I just ask, when you said you were 18 months, I'm trying to get dates for Kushru quarters. What year would that have been?
1948,
Thank you,
December 31st.
thank you.
I also was at the Wadia Park Darshan program that Baba had here in Ahmednagar. I think it was September 1954. It was only 7 years then. I don't remember much, but I remember a couple of incidents, and I remember one incident that was related to me. I was 7 years old, so I wasn't the type to just sit around in front of Baba all day, right? So I was here and there, everywhere, I guess. And Baba was on a raised dais, maybe about a foot or two off the ground, not very high. He had a chair there, and that's where people would take his darshan, and he was giving out prasad with both hands because there were thousands, tens of thousands of people on the one day. And the prasad then was, it was either chana or peanuts, I'm not sure, covered with sugar coated, that white sugar coating that they have outside. That. And as a kid, of course, I loved that. So, Baba's giving out this prasad, and somehow I managed to find my way onto the back of the dais. Baba was there, and I'm here. And at the back of the dais, there was these big baskets of prasad, these big, huge things like that, all stacked up over there. As soon as Baba would finish one, the other would go. I'm standing there looking around, saying, that looks really good. So while no one was looking, I pinched a fit. Baba, thank God, never called me to task for it. He let me get away with it. I remember that distinctly. The other memory I have of that place is that because there were so many people, Baba never finished his giving darshan to everyone. In fact, he promised some of them he would give it a day or two later at Kushru quarters, what is now MeherBabaLibrary. But because he hadn't given it, when he left sitting on top of the roof of Adi Senior's car, Adi K. Irani's car, the blue car that's in, I think it's an Hostel C, it's parked over there, that blue Chevrolet. So I remember that distinctly. He was sitting on top of the roof, waving to everybody as he left. It was quite a big area, Wadia Park. I mean, now you can't even tell where it is in Ahmednagar, it's all built up. But it's where that, the general location is, there's a stadium there in the back. That's the general location of it, but it was a much bigger area than that in those days. Wide open. And the third story about Wadia Park was narrated to me by my parents. Again, there was a group of us from Karachi, and because of the heat, during the afternoon we got very thirsty. Of course, we didn't have bottles like this or bottled water or anything like that in those days. So we were desperately looking for some water, and as we were looking, we asked someone, "Is there any drinking water?" Whoever this person was said, "No, but if you go around here somewhere, there's a bucket of water if you want to drink it." So sure enough, we went around. There was a bucket of water. It was just sitting there. Water looked a little murky. And the adults were debating it, whether it's okay or not. Somebody said, no, another water's like this. It's always murky, it's never clear. I guess we were so thirsty that they decided they would drink it, and we drank it all up. We drank it all up, and within seconds, one of the men mandli turned up. I don't know who the man mandli was, the person was, because I'd forgotten, or the name wasn't told to me. And he looks around, and he's looking around. And finally, he turns to us and he says, "There was a bucket of water here. Where did it go?" So we said, "Well, yeah, there was water in this bucket. We drank it." We said, well, you drank it. He said, yeah, we drank it. Somebody told us it was drinking water. He said, we drank it. He says, oh. He says, that was the water Baba used to wash the feet of the poor. And Baba asked us to keep it separately. So we said, we didn't know. Somebody told us it was drinking water. It looked a little murky. So we drank it all up. So, oh, now I have to go and tell Baba what was going to be most upset. Poor fellow turned around and went away. We never heard anything about it again ever. I don't know what Baba said or did. And surprisingly enough, not one of us had any repercussions from that. When we weren't sick, we didn't have an upset stomach, nothing.
Oh, wow.
So that was
You
the
started having visions and spiritual experiences.
As a 7-year-old, careful.
Maybe he was floating and he didn't know he was floating.
7-year-old, what visions, nothing of that. So that story was related to me by, I think, mom and dad, or mom probably, most likely. I guess 1954, then 58 was not much. I'll jump to the East-West gathering in 62. The year Baba held the East-West gathering, he sent a cable or circular, whatever, around to all his lovers saying, you know, there will be a gathering, such and such a time, such and such a place, you must all come, if possible. And mom and dad wrote and said, we'll definitely come. But we're not sure about Merwan because his final school exam, that was the final year of my school.
You were still in Karachi?
I was still in Karachi. Was in the middle of November, and this was like the first 4 days in November, first, second, third, and fourth, right? So they wrote a letter saying that, and they got a response back saying, no, Baba says Merwan must come for at least 2 days. Now they didn't tell me that. They told me that if you don't study hard for your exams, we won't take you at all. So, for the one time in my life, as a school boy, I did study. Normally I couldn't care less. I'd come home, I'd do my homework sort of and rush off, playing cricket, marbles, whatever I was going on at that time. I wasn't too much into homework, but that year I did study. So, November 1962 comes around. Mom and dad are going early. They're going about 10 days, a week early because they've been asked to come as volunteers to help with the other pilgrims who were coming. And they left me at my aunt's, mom's eldest sister. My aunt is not a Baba lover. And very nice lady. She thought I was being taken there forcibly, like most kids, you know, parents take them whether the kids like it or not. So she tried to tell me, look, if you don't want to go, we'll just send Rhoda cable saying Merwan's not well. And I said, no, don't do that. I want to go. Then she realized that I really did want to go, so she didn't say anything after that. But she decided it all, you know, from her standpoint, it was done in a nice way. So I was going, because of the exams, I was going sort of like on the 31st of October getting to India and just be there for the 4 days. And as soon as the program was finished, I was leaving the evening of the program to get back to Karachi on the 5th and start studying again for the exams, which was like a week away. So I go to the East-West gathering. I spend the 4 days there. Then come back, and mom comes back early, a couple of days after me, and dad still stayed because he had some work to do. And as soon as mom got back, I started running a temperature, and I started running a high temperature, 103, 104. They couldn't figure out what was wrong for a few days. And with that sort of temperature, I couldn't study or do anything. So I was just in bed taking medicine or whatever they gave me. So finally, Mom gets a little, not panicky, but she gets a little afraid that I'm going to miss my exam. So she cables Baba and tells him that Merwan has a very high fever and that, so and so. So Baba cables back saying, don't worry, look after him. And he sends a cable to my dad, who was at that time in Bombay, saying, immediately go back to Karachi and help Rhoda look after Merwan. So dad comes back also very quickly. After about 4 or 5 days of running this high fever, the doctor finally diagnosed it and said, oh, he has a very severe case of measles. But it was a very severe case, high temperatures, you couldn't do anything. So I'm lying in bed doing nothing. Doctor says he can't study or anything, he has to take it easy, no strain. And Dad's there, cables going back and forth between Baba and us. And in one of the cable, Baba says, tell Merwan to be resigned to my will and not to worry. Mom and Dad thought that was it, finished. His exams have gone. Yeah, and meanwhile, while all this is going on, the Parsi community in Karachi, which Ruby reminded me, was talking about all this. Look at those silly parents, take their son to hey Baba, now look at him, he's going to miss his exams, this, that, a lot of chit chat about Baba going on in the Parsi community, all negative. My exams start, and I missed the first paper, whole paper. Now, the way these exams are structured, you had to pass 6 to pass. It was actually an exam out of Cambridge, senior Cambridge exams in the UK. You had to pass 6 subjects, I had 8. So one subject came and went. I didn't even appear. I missed a practical in chemistry or whatever it was, 25% of the marks. I missed my an oral subject in language, Urdu language. I missed that, which was 15-20%, whatever it was in those days. I can't remember of the 4 marks. And then all of a sudden, Mom used to call the doctor every day and chit-chat and give him a report. So she called one day and the doctor says, out of the blue, he says, Mrs. Dubash, Merwan is no longer infectious. He can now take his exams if he wants. So she said, what? Meanwhile, I had recovered from my fever. My fever had gone. I was normal, but of course very weak. So Mom says, what? But you never told us this before. She said, well, Mrs. Dubash, whatever it is, he can take his exams. He's no longer infectious. Because with measles, apparently there's an infectious period, which you have to be in quarantine. You're not supposed to mingle with others because it is an infectious disease. So immediately, Mom puts the phone down and comes, and Dad was there also, and they must have both chatted because they both came and said, well, we want to tell you something, but first sit down. So I sat. I said, now, remember, we're going to tell you something, but before you make a decision, think hard about it. Don't just make a snap decision, think about it properly. I said, well, what is it? Tell me. Then they told me that the doctor said that you can take your exams if you want. And so what do you want to do? I thought hard about it for about 5 seconds. And I said, I'll take it. So she said, are you sure this, that, and the other? I said, yes, I'll take it. So they had to run around because the school principal knew I was sick. Obviously, if I'm not appearing for my final Cambridge exams, you have to inform him. So they had to make arrangements with him to make sure that I could go, this, that, and the other. He was an Englishman in those days because this was a Anglican missionary school that I went to in Karachi. And he said, don't worry, Mrs. Dubash, just do one thing. No, he said, fine, so if the doctor says that's okay, do it. So the next exam that comes, I go. And like all exams, when you have all your friends around, they come rushing to you and you chit chat, what's going to happen, after the paper's finished, you check, what about this, what was the answer here, what was the answer there? Not one person came near me. Nobody came close to me. I went in isolation, sat on my desk, did the exam, came out, nobody around. I went home. The first day I took the exam. The next day, Mom gets a call from the principal saying, Mrs. Dubash, I had lots of complaints, all from Parsi parents, that they're saying this fellow, Merwan Dubash, is coming to the exams, he's going to infect our children, they won't be able to write the exams. You must stop him, you must not allow him to come. So he said, do me one favor. He said, get your doctor to give a little report, a letter saying that his infectious period is over, this, that and the other, and give it to me. And I'll take care of the rest, he said. He was an Englishman. Once he made up his mind, he was going to do it. He wasn't going to take chit-chat from anybody. Old school. So we got the letter, gave it to him, and that was the last we heard of that. So I gave the exams. Like I said, throughout the whole exams. Maths, I was really good at math. Everybody would come with me and check the answers with me to see if the answers were there. Not a soul. Nobody came close. Nobody. So the exams finished. We cabled Baba, said, Merwan sat for his exam. Baba said, good, I'm happy. We had to wait, in those days we had to wait 2 or 3 months for the results. Long wait. So the results, this was in November, I think the results didn't come in January. When the results came in January, it surprised everybody, including myself, because I stood first class. I was never a first class student, ever, or since for that matter. And I stood first class, which surprised everybody. And all the community that was chit-chatting, all these things about Baba, I don't know what they did, but I guess they couldn't have felt too good about it. So we cabled Baba and give him the news, and Baba says, good, very. And then Iraj cables back. Baba says, now give me write a long letter giving the full details. Because Mama needs an opportunity like that. She wrote a God knows how many page long letter with all the details in it. This happened, that happened, everything. 1963 we were going to Guruprasad. And first day we get there, we put our foot in the door, take Baba's darshan, sit there in front of him. And then Baba turns to Rhoda and says, tell everybody who was in the hall about Merwan's Cambridge exams. So Mom narrates the story. Then after Mom finishes the story, Baba said that he did my work among the Parsi community very well. Whatever that means. They were taking his name, Baba always used to say that the most important is taking my name. You don't have to do it in a positive way, you can even do it in a negative way. And the best example is Colonel Irani, who was always Baba's antagonist, but he said, he's so close to me, he doesn't realize it because he constantly takes my name. And that's it. I suppose that's what my rationale, but what do I know? That's what I think. Now, just going back to the East-West gathering itself, we were there for 4 days. I was there for 4 days. Mom and Dad were there for a much longer period. And I was 15 years old. Baba had actually volunteered me as a volunteer. He actually came. We found out later that the Pune Center, who was organizing the function, the volunteers and all the organization for the function, there was a fellow called Ram Krishna, who was the secretary of the Pune Center, who was a key fellow in the Pune Center. He and his group were doing all of it. Baba had told them, when they were preparing a list of volunteers, Baba had sent a message to them that on their volunteer list they should include Adi, Rhoda and Merwan Dubash. And they did. But I guess while they were organizing the function, they would come back and forth to Baba, chit-chat a little bit, give him a progress. In one of those meetings, we were told One of the people at the Pune center said, but Baba, this Merwan Dubash is only a boy. He's on the volunteer list. Baba said, I know. That was the end of it. So I got a volunteer badge. Very unusual for a 15-year-old to be a volunteer because Baba never accepted volunteers above the under the age of 18 or around that age. You had to be a little more than that. So I got this little badge, nice little badge put up here, and I had free access to Guruprasad. And I actually did volunteer, did do some work. I was in the mornings when there wasn't a program and there were mainly the Westerners would come. I would do errands for the Mandli, and then in the evening I would normally outside in the big mandap where the 5,000 people had congregated, I would be doing something to do with crowd control, holding back people, moving a line, something like that. At the end of the day, when the program ended, the first day and every day of the program, Iraj made an announcement. He said, Baba says that I'm very tired. No, Baba says that I will not leave my seat until this place is empty. So Iraj then says, please everybody leave as fast as you can. Because Baba's been sitting here all day, he's been sitting with other pilgrims in the morning, he's very tired, so please leave as fast as you can. The vast majority of the people leave quickly. But there's a small core of a few hundred people who congregated near the platform where Baba was sitting. The volunteers had cordoned that area off about 20-30 feet in front of the platform so that people wouldn't surge to the platform again near Baba. I was one in that line, holding the people back. We literally had to beg some of these people to leave. Please go. Baba is so tired, please go. And gently, move them out. We couldn't force them out because Baba didn't like that. Baba would never like that if we pulled them or tugged them out. So we had to be persuasive with them. While we were doing this, of course, our back was to Baba. Baba must have seen me. Because all of a sudden, one of the volunteers taps me on the shoulder and points to the back. So I look and Iraj is at the edge of the stage saying, come on, Baba wants to meet you. Because Baba hadn't greeted me at all. Even in the morning when I come there, in the afternoon when I came there, I hadn't seen Baba. So I leave the line, I jump up on the stage, Baba, that means bow down to me. So I take his darshan, I greet him, he asks the usual, how are you, this, that, did you sleep well, are you feeling okay? Yes Baba, yes Baba, yes Baba. And then he said, okay, back. So back to your duty. This went on for 4 days. Every single day, there would be a few hundred people who would not go. And Baba would sit and he would wait and he would wait. Finally, till there were maybe a handful of people, then he would get up and go. These people would just not go. You had to really persuade them. That was one of the things I did. The other thing was, I remember on the first day, Baba was on a dais, fairly high. This was a fairly high dais, about 3 feet or so off the ground, perhaps even a little more. He was sitting in the middle of the dais. So the people had to come up the stairs on either side, the men from one side, the women from the other side. No bamboo poles to line up or anything like that. Can you imagine an Indian crowd coming orderly? Oh man, the first day was just push and shove and push, especially on the men's side. I don't know about the women's side, but the men's side was push and shove and hold them back and only let a few people go up on the stage. The whole afternoon passed in that. Overnight, the Mandli and the organizers realized that they had a bit of a problem, so they set up these lines, like they do at BabaThe with the bamboo. So from the second day, it was pretty orderly and no problem. During the gathering, Baba would, from time to time, the first day, Baba got up in the middle of the program, when there was a pause, he got up and everybody got up also, all the whole crowd got up and Baba said, no, sit. And then Iraj said, Baba says, when I get up, please don't stand up. I'm getting up so the people at the back can see me a little better. So he would get up for a few seconds and he would wave to the another back. And he did that a few times during the afternoon. Of course, you heard the story of the rain on the first and the second day. First day, so I'm not going to repeat that. I think you've heard it a number of times.
Well, since you raised it, cover it briefly, so
Well,
people who
on
are
the first-
watching.
yeah,
on the first day,
watching.
the clouds rolled over and Baba kept saying, come on, quickly, it might rain. No, it might rain. It rained like very heavy rain. So maybe a short time, 15-20 minutes, half an hour. But enough that everybody was soaked, and literally soaked. The mandap was sagging under the weight of the water. Water was dripping through. And Baba asked the Western women to go inside and change their clothes. They got the clothes of the women mandap. So you had all these Western women, some walking around in sari, some in different dresses they'd never worn before in their life. The guys didn't have that same opportunity, unfortunately. So, but by the end of the day, we were dry. By the end of the day, by the end of the evening, we were dry. It was that hot. Second day, it rained also, but it wasn't that heavy, and we didn't get that wet. Similar time, about an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours into the program, it started to rain. Most unusual in November again. But so there was 2 days of rain. The other thing I remember about the 62 gathering, East West gathering, was Baba had mentioned, because there were that many people, Baba had given, or the organizers had given specific days and times when certain groups would take Baba's darshan. So the announcement was made on the first day that because there are so many people, Baba says, you must not take darshan more than once. So remember when I was in the volunteers queue holding back the people at the end of the day, Baba called me up and asked me to take his darshan. I took his darshan. So on the second or the third day was the date of the Karachi group to take darshan. And at a certain time, at a particular time. So my mother says, remember, that's the time to take our darshan. Don't be late, don't go away anywhere, you must be there for the darshan. But I said, I've already taken Baba's darshan once. I'm not coming. She said, what did you say? I said, well, Baba called me on the first day, asked me to bow down to him. I bowed down to him, I took his darshan. Baba said, not more than once. I'm not coming. The big argument between mom and myself. So, this was the day before the Karachi group was supposed to take the darshan. So they said, so finally they couldn't convince me. I just said, no, I'm not coming. I've already had it once. So they said, okay, tomorrow morning when we're in Guruprasad, because Baba had asked us to come in the mornings as well, not only in the afternoons, but the mornings as well. We'll ask Iraj. I said, okay, that's fine. So sure enough, the next morning when we get to Guruprasad, we saw Iraj free for a second or two, and we quickly asked him that question. Iraj immediately said, no, Baba can call you as many times as he wants, but you on your own get one chance, which made perfect sense. So I said, fine. So I went, but otherwise I'd absolutely refused to go. And to their credit, mom and dad really didn't force me. They didn't sort of try to say, well, you're crazy or something like that, you must come. They gave me this compromise and we'll ask Iraj, which worked well actually.
So it means you did go.
So I did go.
Karachi.
So I did go the second time with the Karachi group and took Baba's darshan.
At that time, was Darshan bowing down to Baba's feet because he was up on the dais and you were down as...
Baba, the first day Baba was sitting in the center, so people actually had to get up and bow to his feet.
And he let people touch his feet.
Yes, on the second day what they'd done, a swap move, instead of putting him in the middle of the dais, they moved his chair to the edge of the dais. So, if this is the edge of the dais, Baba was sitting here. So people would just come down there, touch his feet, bow to him and move on. Because they were about 3 or 4 feet below him, right? So it was very easy, very quick, very fast.
Thank you.
Should we Skype or something? Oh, you want to sing a song? With your dog?
Yeah, please, here is.
I jumped ahead to 1962, but these were all short contacts, Wadia Park, 1962, few days, 4 or 5 days, whatever. In the 1960s, the three of us, my mom, dad and myself, we had 3 long visits with Baba in 1960, all at Guruprasad. In 1960, 63 and 1965. They were for 6 to 7 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And, every day we would see him, morning and afternoon, virtually. Those were great. I mean, those were when I really got drawn to him. And it was in 1960, it was the first of these. I was 13 years old. And what Baba had said then was that on Sundays, people could come to Guruprasad for his darshan. So we were in Karachi, we decided that we'll go and we'll take Baba, we'll stay there a few weeks and take Baba, see him on every Sunday. So we came to Bombay, of course, through Bombay. And then from Bombay, I still remember we took the Deccan Queen to come to Pune. Deccan Queen gets to Pune at about 8 in the evening, 8. Which is a queen. Gets to Pune about 8:15, around that time, 9 in the dark. And we weren't that familiar with Pune. None of us were that familiar with Pune at that stage. I don't think Mom and Dad had been there, even I had been there, but neither of us had been there. We booked a hotel for someone. So we get to Pune and the train stops, we get off with our luggage and we're looking around to see a porter or someone. All of a sudden, we see Iraj on the platform. Baba had sent Iraj to greet us. Now, Iraj in those days, every time he was at Guruprasad, Baba would allow Iraj to go home at night. So after Baba retired at 4:35, whatever it was in the afternoon to the release side, Iraj would finish whatever work he had, correspondence or whatever else. And then he would go to Bindra House, which is his family house in Pune, and spend the night there. And then early morning he would come back well before the time that Baba came onto the men's side. So Baba told him that since you are going in the evening, you go pick them up and take them to the hotel. So Iraj was there. Great surprise. Now, I'd always been pretty close to Iraj because in 1952, same year that Baba had his accident in the US, that was the year, you might have heard the story from Iraj. He refused to go on the US tour with Baba because he said, Baba, I'm so tired, I won't be able to do justice, I won't be able to serve you properly. So Baba, after being annoyed with him and asking him repeatedly, finally said, okay, but one condition. And the condition was that he and Pendu were to go on this tour of India and Pakistan and give talks. Of course, Iraj at the end of it says, I wish I'd gone with Baba because going around India and giving and this happened for a period of a couple of years. It wasn't just a one-shot thing in a month or two. They had so many places to go. They did certain area for a little while and they took a break. He said, I should have listened to Baba and gone with him. I was shattered after this tour. But that's an aside. But during this tour, they come to Karachi. When they came to Karachi, they stayed at our place. So I got pretty close to Iraj and Pendu then. I was only a little kid then, 52. 5 years. But I got close to them. So I was most surprised to see Raj, and he took us to the hotel. The hotel was Mobo's hotel. You may have heard the name. Actually, the building was still there when I was last in Pune. It's just further down Van Garden Road towards the station on the right. It's now apparently a very dilapidated old building. But it's still there. Last I saw it. A couple of years back. Mobo's hotel.
Mobiles.
Yeah, Mobo. A lot of Papa lovers stay there. Dada Chanjis would take over rooms and rooms when they would come in force. And they would stay there. It's like 5-minute walk from Guruprasad. Very convenient. So, and the next day must have been a Sunday, because next day we ended up at Guruprasad for Baba's Darshan. There was a line, we were standing in the line. And we were waiting for Baba to come, and I still remember Dad saying, "There's the boss." As Baba came out from the side room, he must have seen him, so he was there. Moved with the line, went to Baba, to Baba's Darshan. And Baba, asked the usual things: how are you? Do you sleep well, eat well, how long are you staying, this, that. And then he tells Dad, he tells all three of us, so tomorrow you come every day to Guruprasad, come at 7:45, come at 8 in the morning. And he tells that you, after you go and have lunch when I go to the ladies, and then in the afternoon you come back again. Mom and I only in the mornings. So from next day we started going every day. And I was 13 years old, I'm a restless soul. I'm not the type to sit at one spot contentedly those days. Even today I'm not that like that. But I'm a little older. So every day we went to Baba, we'd stay there in the mornings. In the afternoon, Mama and I would go home. Dad would go to some hotel nearby. Or Mobo's actually. He would go to Mobo's, have his lunch there and come back. After a week of this, I got a little restless. You go to Baba, you sit there in the morning and find Baba's there, people come and chit-chat. If you're doing nothing, you're just sitting there. In the afternoon, you go to the hotel, there's nothing to do, you're completely bored. So I started agitating with my parents that I want to go to Panchgani. Why Panchgani? Panchgani is famous for its schools, as some of you might know. Still is. One of the schools there, Villamoria High School, was owned by Mom's cousins, first cousins. And I visited there a couple of times. In fact, in 1958 for the Savas in Hyderabad, Mom and Dad had left me there, and while they came to the Savas, I had a great time. Boys' school, 300-400 boys, sports fields. There's a tableland in Panchgani. If anybody's been to Panchgani, you know what it is. The flat tableland on top. You could climb up there from the school. You could play horse riding. Oh, it was great. I wanted to go to Panchgani. So I kept agitating. Write a letter. Tell them I want to come to Panchgani. So eventually they got fed up after a few days of me doing this, and they wrote a letter. But they also had to tell Baba, you can't just go to Baba and walk away. So they told Baba, said, Baba, when the opportunity arose, they said, Baba, Merwan wants to go to Panchgani, so we written a letter to our mom said to my cousin there at the school, because he wants to go there. Baba says, what? Say, Baba, he's bored, Mom said. And that's the truth actually, telling you that. As odd as it may seem. Baba made a face. He said, yes, Baba, he says he's bored. In the afternoons, he's got nothing to do. He's all alone, this, that. So Baba said, oh, okay. So Baba said, then from tomorrow, in the afternoons, let him come here with Adi. So I thought, now I'm bored in the afternoon as well. But I was so wrong. There was a night and day difference between what happened in the morning and what happened in the afternoon. In the morning, there would be like 30-40 people sometimes. The small Mandi hall, although it was a very big room, it would get crowded, you would have to jam up and sit there. And sometimes less people. The people would come, go, Baba would tell them something. People always, when they come to Baba, they have a problem, they talk about that. This, that goes on all morning. Mainly is taken up like that. Morning session was what? We got there, Baba would come earlier. We got there at 8. And from 8 to 12, Baba would be there in the morning. Then from 12 to 2, he would go to the ladies' side, have his lunch, rest a little, come back at 2 o'clock, and from 2 to 4, 4:30, sometimes a little later than that, but around that time, he would go in for the night. And he would be with the ladies till the next morning when he came back. That was his routine. So from the next day, I started going in the afternoons. Just me, not mom. Mom was still a daughter. Now, as I say, in the morning, people come and go, and Baba, they talk to Baba, this, that, the whole morning goes like that. Afternoon was quite different. Afternoon, there would only be a few people, 10, 15, sometimes 5, sometimes 6, depending on who was there. And the best thing in the afternoon was the card session. With Laris, his famous game of Laris. But the afternoon started how? The afternoon first started, Baba would come at 2 o'clock, and Erat would bring his pile of correspondence. Sometimes it would be big, sometimes it would be small. And he would read everything to Baba, and Baba would say, reply like this, reply like that, whatever it was. And then poor Erat would go away back again with all the letters, and he would be sitting outside writing his letters. Then Baba would say, okay, anything else? No, okay, bring out the cards, Baba would say. Bring out the cards. Baba's game of Laris was like no trumps. I don't know if any of you are familiar with cards or this. Very simple game. So Baba, first day I was there, Baba asked me, he says, do you know how to play cards? I said, yes, Baba, I'm very fond of cards. And I was pretty sharp at cards. So Baba said, but you may not know how to play. So he said, for a day or two, you just sit and watch. So I said, okay, Baba. So I sat and I watched them play. And Baba, knowing that I was restless, couldn't just let me sit. He said, okay, what you can do is, after the game is finished, people just throw them. If Baba was sitting, for example, in this chair, right, people would sit on the floor around him in a circle. On the ground, Baba would be in his chair. So when the game was over, people would throw their cards in the middle, somebody would have to pick them up, shuffle, and then deal them up. So Baba said, you do that. So I started doing that. So I would pick up the cards, shuffle, and deal them out. First you give it to Baba and then to everybody else. And this went on for a couple of days. Then Baba says, now do you know how to play? I said, yes, Baba, yes, I know how to play. So he said, okay, now you can join us. And I started playing. Also, to give me something to do in the morning, at the time, Rustam and Saurabh were on their school holidays, they would come in the mornings too. They had the job in the mornings of, over here in India, all the floors get a damp cloth every day. Right?
Mop.
Yeah, I mean, not a mop, this is get on your knees with a damp cloth and
Mop the floor.
clean the floor. So they would do it. So Baba said, why don't you go with them and you can clean my floor also. So the three of us used to go off for an hour or whatever it was with a bucket of water and a couple of cloths, and we would divide up Papa's bedroom into 3 and then each take our turn doing that. I was quite happy to do that. And that's how it went. And slowly like that, he got me so interested. I forgot all about Panchgani. After the visit finished, about 6 or 7 weeks later, we get back to Karachi. And my mom and dad one day said, by the way, Merwan, we wrote that letter to mom's cousin in Panchgani. We got a response. And the response said, Merwan is most welcome to come to Panchgani for as long as he likes. But they didn't tell you. Normally I would have made a bit of a fuss, but I really didn't care because I was so, by then Baba got me. I was most content to be with her. So that's how he really got me in 1960. When, before that, like I said, the contacts were short, 3-4 days here, 1 day here, 2 days there. That was a long one, 6 weeks. Now, okay. For the first 2 or 3 weeks, we stayed at this Momo's hotel, which was next to Guruprasad, 5 minutes walk. But Dad didn't have too much money in those days, so slowly his money started running out. So we either had to find a place where we could stay cheaply or with relatives or friends, or we had to go. So we started looking around. We had a relative in Pune who was willing to put us up. The wife was willing to put us up, but the husband wasn't quite sure about it. So there was a bit of a tussle between them going on. And Baba would regularly ask, what's happening? Is Idal uncle and are they going to put you up or not? So Mom and Dad would say, no, Baba, they're still, Idal is still not right. Piluanti was the wife's name. She's willing, but Idal doesn't want to put us up yet still, so they're still struggling. So it was getting pretty close. So Baba eventually said, okay, if they decide not to put you up, Adi can stay with them until in Guruprasad. And Merwan and Rhoda should stay at Bindra house.
Oh.
Yeah, which is Iraj's house, Iraj's family's house, right? Guy Mama and Manu and Merwan. Unfortunately for us, our relatives didn't decide to put us up. So we went and stayed with them, but that extended our stay by another 3 or 4 weeks. And they lived in Pune, somewhere behind Babajan's Dargah, pretty crowded area in the back over there. And our way of getting to Guruprasad in the morning was by bicycle. We used to come by rickshaw, but in those days, you won't believe it, rickshaws wouldn't take 3 people. Absolutely not. Even a kid like me, 13-year-old kid like me, they wouldn't accept. So we had to take 2 rickshaws. And Dad couldn't afford it. So eventually we decided we'd hire bicycles. You could get bicycles very cheap for hire in those days. So 3 of us would come on bicycles. And we did this daily in the morning. Then we would go bicycle back over there, have lunch, and then Dad and I would come in the afternoon and go back. I loved riding a bicycle. And in fact, in Karachi, I never got enough of riding a bicycle. So I enjoyed this. I would zip around, I would be a little fast, this, that, and the other. And when I would come to Guruprasad, sometimes I would, I'd be riding fast and come up to the gate and go, shh, pull up at the gate. Alaba was the one on duty. Alaba was at the gate on duty and he would watch. So, one day, after lunch, we were coming back to Guruprasad. And in the lanes behind Babajan's Dargah over there, which are quite crowded even in those days, Dad and I were riding along, and all of a sudden this car comes at pretty high speed in a small lane like that, crowded with people with his horn blaring, just going through at quite a high speed. Dad veered off to the left, I veered off to the right in front of the car. And the car must have missed me by inches. There was even an old man saying over there, at the side over there, said, "Arey, Bhagwan ne bachaya tumhare ko," means God saved you. Dad was furious. Anyway, we get to Guruprasad, we park our bikes on the side, up the stairs, take our shoes off, put our foot in the side hall where Baba sitting, and immediately we put our foot in the door. Baba turns to my dad and says, "How does Merwan ride his bicycle?" Finished. Dad said, "Arey Baba, he almost got killed just now coming here." So Baba like, he didn't know. What happened? So Dad told him, this fellow, and they said, so Baba said, "Does he drive rashly?" And the Dad said, "Yes, he drives a little fast." And then Baba went around the, pointed and Baba said, "Ah, Baba, I see him also. He comes to the gate and he goes screech and stops with his brakes and this and that." So Baba looks very seriously at me. And he says, "What, do you think I have anything else to do but to keep my nazar on you?" I'm standing there because I know he's annoyed. He's definitely annoyed. So I don't say anything. So he says, "Okay, from now, you're bicycling." This was his sign for bicycle. Is stop. That was his sign for stop. Finish. I said, "Okay, Baba." So we we sit down in the afternoon, the thought comes to both my dad and me, how are we going to return the bicycle? We got a bicycle here, we got to get it back. So we talked to Iraj. At tea, we get at about 3 o'clock, Alaba made tea. Although Baba was there, Baba would say, now go, tea is ready, go and have your tea and come. So we all rush out for the tea and the saucer, blow on it because it was boiling hot, pull it down as fast as we can, drink it up, and come back to Baba because Baba's sitting in the hall. At tea time, we asked Iraj, so Iraj said, I'll ask Baba. So at an opportune moment, he said, Baba, Adi and Merwan were wondering that they have the bicycle here, how will they return it? So Baba says, okay. He says, he points to me and says, you can take it back. But after that, your cycling is still finished. So I said, okay. Now, after Baba left, when we went out, we were all chit-chatting, and the people who were in the room, there weren't that many people in the room, maybe 8 or 9, 10 people in the room. They're telling my dad, they said, Adi, for the last week, Baba has been asking everybody who's been sitting in the room, how does Merwan ride his bicycle? Is he rash? Does he ride fast? How does he ride it? I said, most of us don't know. The only one who knows is Aloba. And he says, yes, Baba, he rides fast, he's rash, he's this, he's that. For the last week, he'd been asking. So that's how it was with it. So anyway, a little sequel on the bicycle thing. So Baba said, no bicycle, so I returned the bicycle and that's it, finished. I can't drive a bicycle here. In Karachi now, I'm about to go to university. The best way to get to university in Karachi in those days was bicycle. I mean, rickshaw was too expensive. You couldn't get a rickshaw, this, that. So I can't ride a bicycle there because Dad would absolutely flat say no. Baba said no bicycle means no bicycle, and he's right. So the next time we came back to Baba in 1963, we raised this question with Iraj. Iraj was our go-between all the time. And we asked him, Merwan, Baba told Merwan to stop it because Iraj had a photographic memory, as you probably know. He remembered almost everything. So he said, my dad said, Baba told Merwan to stop riding his bicycle. Do you think he meant for here? Or in Karachi also, everywhere? So Iraj thought about it and he said, to tell you the truth, even I'm not sure. So he says, again at the opportune time, he says, why are you asking? So Dad said, because now that he's going to college, that's the best way of transport in Karachi. We'll ask at the opportune moment. And he did, not necessarily the same day, in a day or two, or whenever the right moment came. He said, Baba, Adi and Merwan were asking that you stopped him riding the bicycle. But he said, only for here? Or is it in Karachi or everywhere? So Baba thinks about it for a while. Then he asks my dad. Always ask my dad, never me. He says, why? Why does he want to ride the bicycle? So Dad said, Baba, it's the most convenient way to go to college. Otherwise transport is not easy. So Baba said, is that right? He said, yes, Baba, that's the most. So he said, okay. Here, meaning in India, stop. Anywhere else you can ride a bicycle. So even till today I can't ride a bicycle. Although in MeherBabaLibrary it's actually the most practical way of getting around. Hola. So that was one of the things he stopped.
Shall I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, when, in which age and when you came to know that Baba is God?
I always was brought up to know him as God, so that was nothing that came at any particular time. But being with him in the 60s was really when especially in 1960, the first year, is when I really got close to him and attached to him. I mean, after that, if you gave me a choice of Baba or anything else, it would always be him. In fact, Baba would quite often when he was sitting there in Guru, he said, now I'm tired, I don't want anybody coming and bowing to me, hugging me or doing anything, and this would go on for days. Nobody would be allowed to bow to him, to hug him. Once in a while, He makes the rules, he breaks them also, remember? So, once in a while, for example, he would ask the three of us, he would ask my mom, who do you love the most? Me? Or Adi or Merwan? And mom would say, Baba, you. Mama would say, come. And he would give her a hug. And he would do that to all three of us, one at a time. And we would all say, Baba, you. So he would say, come, give us a hug. You would give him a hug. So he would break his rules. But that was when I really, 1960 was when I started really, I came close to finish. That was the end. After that, there was no question. But I'm always brought up to believe him as God. And even Baba would quite often, when we were sitting, especially in the afternoons, when we were playing cards, having a good time, laughing, joking, Baba would say, don't forget, you're all sitting here playing with me, playing cards, smiling, joking. Don't forget, I am God. This was his sign for God. I am God in human form. Don't forget that. He would tell the Mandli also. Quite often. All the time. and it became like that, sometimes people became so familiar with Baba that they would forget. And you could almost see a little bit of disrespect, but it was inadvertent. It wasn't something they did knowingly, but it just came because of the closeness. I'll give you a story. It's not to do with this, but I'll give you a story of Baba. Again, Guruprasad. We were sitting one day, and it was in the afternoon. Meherji was sitting on that wall, Baba was sitting here. And Baba sitting here, say in this chair, and there were two doors on this side, coming into the hall, from the veranda. Baba never liked a cool breeze, as any of you know. Even not a cool breeze, even a warm breeze. If there was slightest breeze, Baba would never like it. That day it was cool, or there was a breeze, so Baba told Meherji, he said, shut the doors, shut the doors. Poor Meherji, before he could even get up like this, Baba was up in a slap. Doors were shut, and he was putting on the lap. Baba says, what are you doing? And Baba said, you said close the door. Baba said, did I tell you? Who did I tell to close the door? I told Meherji. He says, you live with me all this time and you still don't know? When I tell somebody to do something, it's for a reason. I just don't say it for nothing. He got really angry at Baba. He said, if you don't improve, you will cry tears of blood. He says, you have to get out of this habit. I know you do it out of love, but you must not do it. He was very angry. Then he says, open the doors again. So he had to open the door. And then poor Meherji, who's sitting over there still. And then Baba turns to Meherji and gives him a bit of a fight. He says, and you, when I asked you to jump up, when I asked you to open the door, you take your time like this. He said, you should be up in a snap and shut the door. Poor Meherji got a firing also. Things like that, Baba would get annoyed with.
Thank you, Merwan and Ruby, very much for sharing it with everybody.